Now, there's the old saying, a week is a long time in politics, and boy, what a week it's been. From the nationwide hīkoi that descended on Parliament earlier this week to protest against the ACT Party's Treaty Principles Bill, to the passing of the Samoan Citizenship Bill, putting an end to a long and historic fight for justice. Here to discuss all of this and much more is Deputy Prime Minister Vaovasamanaia Winston Peters. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Look, let's go there with the hīkoi. Your reflections on how it all unfolded this week?
Well, I was there in 1975 for the first land march of any really substantial size. And it began with my tribe called Ngāti Wai, or my iwi called Ngāti Wai, way back then. And then I contrasted with this one, and it wasn't a hīkoi, it was a kākoi. And many of them flew in there, and I know the leadership of the Pāti Māori who jacked this whole thing up without telling anybody that they were the organisers of it, and just started an incorporated company to make the profits out of it. Never told anybody until the hīkoi was so-called over. But they came down, did it down, and stayed at the Sofitel for 2 nights, then went back again. And I look at that and I think the people in that march didn't know that. Some of them didn't know what the background was. And here's the real question. They never asked Luxon whether he wanted to speak at it. They never asked me would I speak at it. Now, I'm not demanding that they ask me, but I've gone down to see protesters in a long career, all the way to the ones who were being anti-vaccine, protesting about the vaccine during the COVID period. And I was the only politician, like me and my colleague, to go and see the protesters. So I'll talk to anyone. But they never even invited us to speak. And then they make it out that they came down to talk to us. No, they didn't. They came down and put on a stunt. And you might think that's an over-explanation of things, but that's exactly what I believe it was, because if they were sincerely wanting a conversation with us, why not in a Māori context or in the Pacific context? This is automatic. They'd ask you, would you speak to us? And the answer, of course, would have been yes.
Certainly. Look, I was in the crowd then to observe. I must stress I was there to observe, not to engage or support. I swear by that. But, asking some people in the crowd why they're there and asking them to explain the reasonings, some might argue, perhaps there was a bit of me that thought this is a bit of a rent-a-crowd moment because everyone had their own reasons and different reasons. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Well, I know it's a fair assessment because I know one serious journalist who went out and interviewed them, and a lot of them didn't know why they were there when he asked them, what are you here for? No, they want to be part of something, and I could understand that. And I give them one credit. The people who were, in my view, largely duped, they did seriously behave themselves. There was not a sense of kind of potential violence and what have you. And in that sense, it was a tribute in a way to the standards of some people in our society. Now, that was the only upside. The downside was a cacophony of speeches, which I thought were awful, where one of them from Te Pāti Māori was reading the speech off the phone while they were talking to them. That's not how you behave on a marae. Was actually this member of parliament was reading the speech out and being glorified by the mainstream media for doing it. I couldn't believe it.
What would you look? It didn't happen this week, but last week I'd actually like to get your thoughts on it, on the Haka that was performed in the House. It's obviously made global headlines. Do you feel a sense of embarrassment at all, or what do you take away from it?
Yeah, I have a sense of acute embarrassment because that's the image we put offshore and glamorized by some, accepting this Haka was organised well in advance. They organised the gallery upstairs, meant to be there sitting there calmly, not making any noise, to get ready for the Haka. They even had the people getting ready for the cameras beforehand. There's nothing impromptu about this at all. Now, why are you hearing it from me that it was an organised, prearranged, pre-organised, a stunt? And then this person thinks that they can get up and do a Haka and then go and threaten somebody, which is against the rules of the House. And here's the real point. The most fundamental point about this was the Haka was a shocker that they did. You could not say any Māori would have been proud of it. And then the next question is, so if we all start to behave this way, how can we have any chance of progressing things in the House when the timetable will be busted up? Instead of starting at a certain time, you won't know when you're going to start, when you're going to finish. It'll quickly descend into chaos. We have these rules, and remember, Māori have been there since 1867. which is way before than most countries ever got democracy. And with all its failings, they've been there, all these Maori, all the times from 1867, including 4 who got into general seats. Only 4 of us did, and I'm one of them. All the way before MMP, from 1867 till MMP, only 4 have made it into the general seats in this country. And all of those past Maori all believe that we should abide by the rules. But here comes this new bunch of clowns, and they decide we'll write the rules. And my answer to them is no, you won't. Thus, Maori in Parliament, who are far more outweigh you, are going to stop this sort of misimaging of who we are.
Yeah, certainly. I think there's perhaps this misconception, and I'd like to get your take on it, where certain fragments of Māoridom feel as though they speak for all, when, there are different views, and I think that should be encouraged, right?
Of course there is, but look, you've got these people jumping up and down, and they're young people and certain people in Parliament shouting out tino rangatiratanga. And I was making the point yesterday in the House about that. You know what tino rangatiratanga means? Tino rangatiratanga means the chief's word is gospel. And I reckon that's the same way as it is in Samoa and the same way as in Tonga. But here's this bunch of clowns that say, we've got it. Now it says, no, you don't. The chief does, but you don't. They just write the rules as they please. And they're teaching it at university. They're teaching it at law school. They're teaching junk as though it was law. And I go on the basis of this brilliant Maori politician, and he holds the record for getting a law degree in this country in terms of time. He got a master's of laws as well. His name was Sir Arapurana Ngata. And everything he said, these people are saying is not true. And yet, vast majority of Maori saying, oh, hang on, Ngata's the one, not you people.
I just want to get your take very quickly on the Treaty Principles Bill. And now, I know based on the coalition agreement, National and New Zealand First will not be passing it past the first reading. But also, I mean, should we not be aspiring to all be one at the end of the day anyway? You know what I mean?
Isn't it strange that you asked that question? Because that's exactly what Whina Cooper said when 50 years ago she launched the Maori Land March from our iwi, called Ngāti way up north, when we were fighting the then Labour government and the Whangarei then County Council, now City Council. And she said, we signed the treaty to become one people. So Whina was lauded until all of a sudden now they're saying, oh no, but Whina was wrong. You get me? It's unbelievable what people are getting away with, or think they're going to get away with. And some of us have been around long enough to know that what they're saying is wrong.
Yeah. With that basis then, I mean, why does New Zealand First not support ACT's Treaty Principles Bill?
Because as Ngata said, and he laid it out in his thesis 102 years ago, there are no principles to the Treaty of Waitangi. He laid out this a 3-clause document, which means this, and this. And if you are unhappy about it, blame your then leaders. And, that's what our view is. My iwi and others, in our case, Tamata Wakanene, was there at the time and signed the treaty. And please don't tell me it was an ignoramus, which is what they're saying. They're saying, oh, these people didn't know what day it is. These chiefs were far smarter than these modern ones are. And that's my point. We're not going to stand by while they just rewrite history according to how they think. Because then here comes the next point. Once you start backing up the principles, where do you stop? And in a long 50-year career of watching in politics, it spans 50 years, of watching in politics, nobody at university, nobody in the courts of law can tell me what the principles are. Except they kept on insisting upon them. See what I mean? Now, if you're talking about a criteria for proper settlement of Maori grievances, I agree. But I've said from day one, Seymour's bill is fatally flawed. This is mistaken. It's wrong.
Okay. Look, just very quickly on the Samoan Citizenship Bill, before I let you go, credit where credit is due. You did tell us way back in May that New Zealand First intended on supporting it right through, and you did, which is great. Also, the amendment that was made by New Zealand First's Andy Foster as well, in terms of, Samoan people that are successful with this, getting citizenship, being afforded back a refund, which is a good positive, I suppose. I mean, what's your take now that the bill has passed?
Oh, look, it's a proud case, as I said to Tiana. Tiana, isn't it great? Sometimes we can cooperate across the house. we can get things done. But my also point is I think that we've got to do more work on other aspects of entitlement of those people who were so egregiously treated in 1982. But bear in mind, in 1982, when Muldoon passed that law, he was supported by the other two parties in Parliament. Both the Labour Party and the then Social Credit Party supported it. So it was the unanimous view of parliamentarians at that time. And my point is that I thought they were wrong. I thought they were wrong then, and I wasn't in Parliament then. And I think they were wrong now. So that's the way it is. It's taken so long. I've just said to a lot of Samoan leaders, look, give us time. We're going to work on making it a better outcome as well. And then we can perhaps assuage our conscience and know we have done our best.
Certainly. Do you think just very quickly, do you think it should extend to the descendants? And do you think pension should be brought forward for those? Because look, I mean, they're not going to be around much longer, dare I say. I mean, so yeah, should those two things be included, do you think?
Well, I think in the first one, extending to descendants, we have a problem. And that problem should be have a good hard look at the Samoan economy and the Samoan people. I think anything that threatens will deconstruct the population or end up with dramatically lowering the population of Samoa is not good for Samoa. I'm not for me to say, but I've been around long enough to know that I suspect the reason why the Samoan government did not want to be part of this debate and left it to us is because they are concerned at the erosion of their population, and they've got a right to be. And our job in our foreign affairs and everything we do when working with Samoa is to try and bring and be a partner ourselves economic and social plans to keep Samoans in Samoa. We'll do far better, more for them there, you see, and that's what we're talking about. Now, on the other one, that's what I've signaled, that there is the need to do the detailed work to be able to make a promise that you can keep.
Certainly.
That's on super.
Yes, of course. Before we wrap it up, I'm going to ask a cheeky question, and feel free to throw it back at me and say no. Put your foreign affairs hat on for a moment. What do you make of Donald Trump? He's back in the White House come next year.
In 2016, in January, before the November Super Tuesday election, that year, I said that Trump was going to win. And I said it also this time. Not because I want to interfere with anybody's politics, but one of the things about opinions and polls and what have you is far too many people and far too many commentators, when they give in their view, they give their view of what they want rather than saying, I want to know what the people who have the power and the might and the strength, the ordinary people, what do they think? And I've always tried to read the room as to what Mary blogs, Joe blogs, or Hene or Hone or what her name is. I try and think what they think and if I do that, I can get it right. Because I listen to all these darn experts and they got it all so wrong. And they got it wrong twice. Just don't know what to. I remember the Brexit, when the British left the European Union. And people saying to me, what is going to happen? I said, it's as obvious as anything. You ask any taxi driver in London what they want to do and they're going to leave. Yes. Those people have got the numbers. No, but all these experts and even these politicians and all these university professors and a whole lot of international leaders were interfering in the Brexit decision in the UK, saying don't leave. And I thought, this is extraordinary. They're going to leave, all right, and leave they did. And the Labour Party was themselves, because they wanted to stay. The Labour Party was shocked in the core hard areas of Labour in that election on the 23rd of the referendum on the 23rd of June 2016, those hardcore Labour territories went hard for the Brexit and to leave. Same in America. When I heard that 35 people that have never registered to vote for 35 years are now registering to vote, it became clear to me they're only going to vote one way. And so I said, well, before the election, on the quiet, I told my team, and I've got a record of it, look, get ready. There's going to be a change here.
Dare I say, there's similarities between the way you're portrayed in media and the way that perhaps Trump's was portrayed in the media. And what I mean by that is just the polling. You know what I mean? Where you're discredited or saying there's no way back, and then ultimately you do come back. You know what I mean?
Look, It's April of 2020, and the Serious Fraud Office launched an attack against me and my party. I beat him at the outside the court on the 23rd of September 2020, but it was too late. The rot had set in. And then they went to another court hearing and got smashed. Then they appealed that. Now they're spending $4.2 million to take us on, and we thrashed them the last time as well. Beat them all three times. And yeah, I got back all right, but no one ever knew that I'd won, did they?
Mm.
The court case, that is.
Yes.
And the impropriety of it all. Just one thing. I've been around far longer than Trump.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good way to end things. Hey, thank you very much for your time as always. That is Deputy Prime Minister
Thank
Winston
you very
Peters.
much. Thank you.
Cheers. Now, let's turn our attention to extraordinary scenes last week, eh? Still reeling from them, really. I was among the crowd and it was amazing to witness. Let's go there, though. Tens of thousands of people turned out to take a stand against the ACT Party's Treaty Principles Bill and the government's divisive policy decisions when it comes to race relations. But it begs the question, where to from here? Joining me for more on this is Te Pāti Māori co-leader Debbie Ngarewa-Packer. Kia ora, good morning to you.
Morena.
Hey, look, before we go any further, I mean, let's just get a quick reflection. Obviously, it's been some time now since the hīkoi happened, but, you know, I was among the crowd purely to witness and see what was going on. There was a lot of tangata moana there. What did you make of it?
I mean, surely you were there more than just to witness what was going on. Yeah, I guess what I make of it is that there is huge unity in Aotearoa against anyone and against any government that is proposing to remove the rights of indigenous peoples, that is proposing to bring such harm and division at a time when we all really need to be looking after each other. And most significantly, and I will get into this, there is also the reality that we know that we have a big mahi before us to help our whānau and the nation to understand that Te Tiriti o Waitangi is here to protect all New Zealanders, particularly protect all New Zealanders from corporate exploitation, which is really what this is all about. So I'm really keen to talk about what next, but it was a beautiful hīkoi, beautiful discipline, beautiful aroha, but it was also the start of the hard work to come.
Yeah, for sure. Look, we had Mātua Winnie on the show on Friday, and it was a bit of a ranting session for him. He called it nothing more than a kākoi, and basically that it was just for Te Pāti Māori to build its own supporter base. What do you make of that rhetoric?
I think that he has to probably be really dismissive of it because it is humiliating, particularly for him because he is a minister that has to look after our foreign affairs and foreign relationships. And the fact of the matter is, a few days before, we'd done a massive haka in the House, which got hundreds of millions of views, and embarrassed the government in showing that the race relations in Aotearoa are at an all-time low. It embarrassed the government because it showed that there isn't the harmony that they profess to say exists in Aotearoa. In fact, these anything but. So, you know, I get, and plus, you know, he's like that grumpy uncle that we all have in our whānau that's just like chucks off at everything we do wrong, and has nothing great to say. But the reality is, of course, it was a hīkoi, it was a kākoi, it's a run koi, it was a aroha koi, it was a koha koi. I mean, you know, however you want to look at it, there has never been the scale of that type of mobilisation of as many Māori as non-Māori. But, you know, to cheapen it by saying that it was a recruitment drive, I think is a takahi to our people who know that this was about, you know, more significantly about the unity of us as Aotearoa, and that's what was important.
Yeah, certainly. I hear what you're saying. I just want to pick up on that point of the haka, because it definitely has swept the globe, made global headlines on news outlets that I never thought I'd see New Zealand on, which is incredible in itself. But again, to Winnie's point that he was saying, and this is for your right of reply here, saying it was nothing more than engineered, and it was basically it was all already set in place. It was going to happen. I mean, what do you say to that? Was it engineered?
Oh, look, I think first of all, and it's a little bit like the haka that we've seen in the weekend, there has to be a place that allows our tikanga and our expression to come out in some of the most darkest days. My mokopuna is just walking. The most darkest days in the history of Aotearoa. You know, upstairs we had Ngāti Toa who had turned up for everything. The haka belonged to them. I don't know how else they expected us to release the deep sense of betrayal that we have to be here defending ourselves. So, no, I think it's cynical
Mm,
of that matua to feel like that. But our youngest MP, particularly, was raised to have to be proud of who
mm.
she is, and that's how we want our younger generations to be. So, and I get the whole. We're only allowed to do the haka when it is performative and entertaining. Actually, we're also allowed to express our deep emotions in that house.
Yeah.
They don't get to tell us when we use our tikanga and when we don't. Yeah, they're happy to have our karakia, karanga, our waiata when it suits, but actually in an authentic situation when we're really deeply grieving. I mean, the insult of it all, and as you could see, Hannah, if I had to try and rip the fast track bill like that,
Mm,
I'd be still there trying to tear it away, because there's so many pages.
yeah.
She was able to ever so delicately rip that paper because it was 4 measly pages and relegated from the tupuna and the love of our tupuna for their nation. We've been relegated to 4 thin pages, which is so ripped easily by our youngest MP. So
Mm,
it was actually an expression of deep grief
yeah.
and sadness and probably the darkest times in history we've ever spent in that house.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I don't want to lament or stick around talking about Matua Winnie's comments, but one more question. So,
You've got good one, so you've got to comment back. It's great to get a write a reply.
that's right. So Peters dismissed the concept of treaty principles, arguing the treaty is a straightforward 3-clause document. He also referenced Sir Apiran Ngata's interpretation of the treaty to support his stance. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I agree. The Tiriti is extremely simple to interpret, to understand, and to live. The problem is in Aotearoa is that no one seems to want to honour the articles of, kawanatanga, rangatira, mana orite. The reality is, and I can understand what Tāparanga Ngata had to contend with in his time as a rangatira. He was dealing with the fact that we were a dying population.
Mm,
We were on the cusp of extinction, and he had to make decisions. Assimilation was a strategy to keep us alive,
mm,
and we should never ever knock the decision he had to make in that time, the politics he had to live in that time. We're now 1 million strong. We now have found our way back to Wakapapa. Half our mokopuna are Pacifica and Māori, so we've now been able to embrace that. We have the right and we deserve the right to live and thrive. And I think we now have a different tenure of politics because thankfully we weathered that revolting period.
mm,
And so I guess, and I understand the politics of wanting to live in the past. But 70% of our population are under the age of 40. We do not get the right as today's politicians to apply, the old whakaaro only to our thinking. We must be transformational and we must be aspirational.
mm.
So I think we just come from different spheres of influence, and our influence is that we're 1 million plus,
Hmm.
and we want to be thriving. That's it.
Yep, totally. Good point. Where to from here is what it begs now. I mean, what's the plan next?
I think the most significant messaging, and so the hīkoi was about waking us up, us collectively in Aotearoa, not just tangata whenua, us collectively. To wake us up, we need to look at some of the real hard facts before us. We have a party that got less than 8% of the votes of Aotearoa, very, very minor, that is now springboarding the aspirations of the Atlas Network. And it's really interesting because mainstream media, they just shirk when we say Atlas Network. And, the Atlas Network, and if you have a look at they are huge, they are the hyper wealthy.
Mm,
They are the hyper wealthy who have a huge advantage by corporate exploitation.
mm,
So we need to spell it out for our whānau to see this is not a race relations battle. This is a corporation takeover battle where we have the super wealthy who are anti-climate change, who are anti-indigenous peoples, and you can follow their track. Canada, Brexit, America, Indigenous Australia. You can see what they did with the voice referendum. We have that now in our backyard. And the sooner we see this for what it is, I don't like David Seymour's politics, but he has also been led by the Atlas Network. So Māori, the Tiriti is in the way. We are the last bastion. So if you want to go in exploit the ocean, exploit the whenua, exploit the people, you have this blinking pain in the backside legal document called Te Tiriti. To remove it means we can then open up corporate exploitation. So our messaging has to be really clear. Te Tiriti protects all New Zealanders from corporate exploitation. Te Tiriti protects all of Aotearoa from corporate exploitation. And this bill that's before us represents the aggression of corporate exploitation. So our message has to be really clear in spelling that out. You know, Jane Jenny Gibbs is a huge donor to ACT. Her daughter is Debbie Gibbs, who is a huge, she's the chair of the Atlas Network. It all interconnects. Their whanaungatanga with their hyper richness is mobilised as well. We've seen Hobson's Pledge are now smashing Luxon because they're going to try and force and pressure the same way they did with the Three Waters, the same way they did with Stop Co-Governance. That's what we're up against. So our messaging has to be clear, whānau. See the kaupapa, see what it is you're contending with, and mobilise accordingly. Save your energy and be able to respond to the messaging. Our response to messaging is kill the bill, and Te Tiriti o Waitangi protects all New Zealanders from corporate exploitation. Those are the two key messages. The next thing is to mobilise the ability to do submissions. So there are two big kaupapa. When we're sitting there having kai, it's about actually understanding what it is that we're contending with and being really clear and aroha to each other to see, okay, we're just up against the dollars again, the profiteers again. So we had a really cool wānanga with Tokoroa last night. We've got Taranaki Papeoia, some of our whānau have mobilised in Wanganui, Tamaki Makaurau or Tautahi, and the purpose of it is actually to show how to do submissions, how to put your expression into the submissions, and then get them in. I think before January the 7th is the closing date. But we have seen the way the voice referendum went in Australia, and we saw how they mobilised to make what was a 75% vote in favour to the complete opposite. So our messaging, our whanaungatanga, our hearing for each other, our mobilising against this, and hopefully I have no doubt we will come out the other end stronger, and then talk about what we do more united as a nation to protect us as Aotearoa.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot, but it's
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to ask this question, and I don't want to make it seem as though it's the point that Winston's making, but it's undeniable Te Pāti Māori has got this great momentum going at the moment in comparison to, say, the other opposition parties. Just the other day I characterised Labour as being a bit too stale. Just with your political hat on for a second, do you think that Te Pāti Māori is taking more and more voters on because of the traction that you're building?
I think first and foremost, I'd love us to take the credit for the hīkoi, but the hīkoi was actually run by our people, and it was our job to get in there and serve and be around for them, just as it's our role. We saw our Queenie, Ariki Ngāwai Honoi Te Pō, who mobilised and walked with and led with her people. So I think first and foremost, I think Winston does a disservice to our communities, to our people who mobilised. I think they deserve the credit, not us. Are we getting momentum? I think we already were. And I'll qualify that. For the first time in the history of Aotearoa, before the hīkoi, before ACT's referendum, there are more people now Māori on the Māori roll than there are Māori on the general roll. So I think we were already making a dent. I think we're already making a dent. We have the youngest politician, we have MPs who everyone around the motu can relate to, whether it's Whaia Deb, whether it's, Takuta or Rawiri, that everyone can relate to us. We look like a typical whānau. So I think that was already mobilising. Hey, Moko, but whether we...
Oh, morena.
But I think, can we take the credit? I just guess that we're relatable, but I also think that we've been really smart. Toitū Te Tiriti was open for all peoples, not just Te Pāti Māori followers. We have worked hard with Te Pāti Kakariki and Te Pāti Labour to show solidarity as opposition. So I think there's room for all of us. I don't want this to look like, hey, this is us trying to catch votes, because actually what's more important is that we support our communities and our people out there, and I think that's what's more important than us on some sort of membership drive or anything like that. And I think, we just want to make that really, really clear. There's been, and I get where Winston's coming from, because we don't politic like they do. Like, hey, we don't pick up the babies and kiss the babies. Like, we're pretty grassroots. We still stuff up our Instagram lives, and we tend to hoodie it out and wear sports shoes inside the house. So I get that we confuse him, because we actually worry more about our communities that we represent than we do sort of how we're polling, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, thank you so much for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this kōrero. You have a good rest of your week, eh?
Cheers. Okay, you too. Ka kite.
Ka kite.